Ulterion followed his crabman friend Pangzi to his underwater home, where, once again, he encountered Palms, the were-octopus, this time the conqueror of the hermit, Pangzi's people. Ulterion fought with the would-be ruler, but that's a story for another day. Ulterion washed up on a beach. Ulterion made his way across the beach, wringing out his clothes and dusting off sand, and grumbling to himself.
Never thought I would get sick of washing up on a beach.
Ulterion grumbled his way through a forest of palm trees.
Nice fence with ferns.
Till he heard music.
Civilization?
Ulterion grew nervous.
I hope they're nicer than the last time.
Ulterion found himself in a small village where half mongoose, half people worked in little grass shops, while people roamed about purchasing services and wares. Ulterion smiled at the sight. He knew he was on one of the islands of the Isle of Iree. The Isle of Iree was home to the mongoose. They were interesting creatures who seemed to live simply with little clothing, just enough to cover their bits, and some had fur in dreadlocks. Ulterion pulled out his list.
This should be easy. What am I getting here?
Ulterion unfurled the list. Ready to.
Coconut. Coconut? That's so easy.
Certainly. A mongoose playing steel drums wandered over to Ulterion.
Hey, boy.
Ulterion gave the steel drummer an annoyed knock.
Hello.
Turned his attention back to his list with a subtle sign that he wasn't interested in talking to the steel drummer. The steel drummer did not take the hint.
You look like you produced some tunes there.
Ulterion gave the steel drummer a smile, and a very false smile.
I'm alright, thank you.
The steel drummer continued to play. He shook his head.
Sorry, Bob. I hear you.
Ulterion glared at the steel drummer.
I don't.
What?
Ulterion was getting agitated, so his volume went up.
I said.
The steel drummer suddenly stopped playing.
All right, E. The song is over.
The steel drummer held out his hand.
Coin, please.
Ulterion speared at the steel drummer. He reached in and tossed a gold coin on his hand. The steel drummer smiled and nodded.
Thanks for the patronage, brother.
Ulterion waved the drummer off.
Yes, it was fine. Get going.
Among the steel drummers saluted Ulterion as he started to walk off. A thought came to Ulterion and he shouted after the steel drummer.
Wait.
One of the steel drummers stopped and brought his attention back to Ulterion.
Want to make some more coin?
We always ready for that coin.
I figured you would be. A gold coin if you tell me where I can get a coconut.
The steel drummer looked at Ulterion in abject horror. Ulterion looked at the steel drummer curiously.
Did I say something wrong?
The steel drummer slowly backed away.
You can keep the coin, brother.
But
Before Ulterion could say anything else, the steel drummer ran off. Ulterion watched after the steel drummer curiously.
that was odd.
Ulterion walked through town talking to several mongrels. Every time he would ask about coconuts, his mongrel conversation partner would run off. Ulterion found his way to a fruit stand. He bought some long yellow fruit. He bit it, and immediately spit out the hard, rubbery piece in his mouth. He stared at the mongrel shopkeeper in confusion. Indignation.
This is a delicacy?
The shopkeeper gently took the fruit from Ulterion's hand.
Let me show you something now.
The shopkeeper peeled the hard, rubbery layer off the fruit, revealing a soft, white interior. The shopkeeper handed the fruit back to Ulterion.
Try that now.
Ulterion eyed the shopkeeper suspiciously. She pleaded with him.
Go on.
Ulterion slowly bit at the fruit, scowled as he prepared for a bitter taste. Ulterion was pleasantly surprised to find that the taste of the fruit was sweet.
Good.
The shopkeeper smiled. Ulterion finished his.
Say, what is this called?
That be a banana.
Ulterion smiled and finished his banana.
While we're on the subject of fruit, could you tell me where I can find a coconut? Everyone seems so...
The shopkeeper looked at Ulterion with wide-eyed horror, which confused Ulterion.
scared.
The shopkeeper looked around suspiciously, then gave Ulterion a very serious look.
Meet me here later tonight.
Ulterion looked around to see what the shopkeeper was looking for.
I guess, but what?
Ulterion turned back to talk with the shopkeeper, but she had already closed her shop. Night came over the island. Ulterion made his way through the island where only a shop or two remained open to cater for the night owl tourists. He did his best to make sure no one saw him. Ulterion made his way to the small shop but was confused to find it closed.
Huh?
Ulterion looked around.
Where is she?
Ulterion's attention was arrested by a noise.
Psst.
Ulterion looked towards the back of the shop where a hooded figure peeked around a corner and beckoned him to come.
Who are you?
The hooded figure put a finger to its lips. Ulterion looked around, making sure no one heard.
Oh, sorry.
The hooded figure brought back its hood to reveal it was the shopkeeper. Ulterion slapped himself in the head.
Sorry. I'm tired.
The shopkeeper rolled her eyes and slinked back behind her shop. Ulterion sneaked behind the shop where the shopkeeper was waiting. She looked around to make sure no one was watching.
I got what you're looking for.
The shopkeeper pulled 2 coconuts from her robe and gently handed them to Ulterion. He took the coconuts, giving the shopkeeper a curious look.
Thanks. By the way, why are we doing this in secret?
The shopkeeper looked around.
It started a couple months ago. We're minding our own business. When? An army of ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and kobolds attacked us. They surprised us with their numbers, but the biggest surprise was that they stole our coconuts.
Ulterion looked at the shopkeeper curiously.
The coconuts? Why?
The shopkeeper put a finger to her muzzle.
Oh,
Ulterion looked around in worry.
the coconuts. Why?
The shopkeeper shakes her head and sighs.
I don't know. Coconuts were our biggest seller. It really hurt the economy.
Ulterion shook his head.
I'm so sorry.
The shopkeeper hung her head.
And every time we try to sell coconuts, we don't get attacked.
That's awful.
The shopkeeper hung her head and shook it.
It be.
The shopkeeper suddenly lifted her head and smiled.
Anyway, them coconuts are 100 gold.
Ulterion's eyes grew wide.
What?
The shopkeeper put a finger to her muzzle again. After giving the shopkeeper the rest of his gold, much to his chagrin, he sneaked through the night. Ulterion found a spot under some palm trees. He was about to shove the coconut into the bracelet when someone shouted at him.
What you have there?
Ulterion looked up to find an ogre staring down at him. Ulterion immediately hid the coconut behind his back.
Nothing.
The ogre glared down at Ulterion.
Me saw you holding something.
Ulterion shook his head.
No, I think you're seeing things, sir.
The ogre sneered.
You no trick me. Me have best eyes of ogre brothers and sisters. You show me hand.
Ulterion shrugged.
All right.
Ulterion shifted the coconut to his left hand and showed the ogre his empty right hand.
See? Nothing.
The ogre shook his head, clearly not believing Ulterion.
What in other hand?
Ulterion looked up in mock confusion.
I'm sorry?
What in other hand?
Ulterion put his free hand behind his back, shifted the coconut, and showed the ogre an empty left hand. The ogre sneered again.
Show me both hands.
Ulterion had dealt with ogres before, and they were generally pretty stupid. This one seemed a bit too smart for its own good. Ulterion did the only thing he could think of. He tossed the coconut aside and showed the ogre both hands. The ogre nodded with a smile of satisfaction on his face.
Good. You have no coconut. Carry on.
Thanks. Good night.
Ulterion ran off. Ulterion smiled as he ran a bit away from the ogre until he heard
Oh look, a coconut.
Ulterion winced. Ulterion followed the ogre to see where he was taking the coconut. Ulterion followed the ogre to a cave. Ulterion followed the ogre into the cave, very quietly. At one point he accidentally kicked a rock, which made the ogre stop
Huh?
and look around.
Someone there?
But he could find nothing. The ogre merely shrugged
Guess we just hear things.
and continued walking. Ulterion had just barely hid behind a boulder before the ogre could catch him. He peeked out to see the ogre walking away. Ulterion breathed a sigh of relief and continued pursuit. Ulterion followed the ogre into a wide cavern where he looked in shock. As he saw several ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and goblins milling about. He jumped behind the nearest cave wall. This was going to be tough. He peeked around the corner to see the ogre he was pursuing toss the coconut into a horde of coconuts. Ulterion thought that this would be the biggest test of his stealth skills. Ulterion ran behind a boulder where an ogre and troll were talking.
We can't believe we got a coconut.
We concur.
The ogre looked at his troll friend curiously.
What?
The troll shrugged.
We heard word somewhere.
Ulterion managed to sneak behind another boulder next to a table of hobgoblins playing a card game. Ulterion listened to them briefly.
How much you bet?
Another hobgoblin looked into his cards. He smiled.
I bet 2.
The other hobgoblins became excited.
2 gold?
The betting hobgoblin shook his head somberly.
No, 2 coconuts.
The other hobgoblins groaned.
Come on, Farga.
A hobgoblin named Thorga shrugged.
What do you want from me? All we have is coconuts. You know how the master feels about gold.
Ulterion made his way to a stalagmite where some goblins and kobolds mingled and played a dice game.
Do we have any meat?
A kobold glared at the goblin.
What is your sin?
The goblin sneered.
A guy can dream, can't he?
Ulterion slowly made his way to the coconut horde. His fingers slowly reached towards a coconut. His fingers touched a coconut at the top, which was enough to knock it down. Ulterion winced as the coconut made its way down the pile. He watched in helpless horror as it hit the ground and rolled away. Ulterion looked around, ready to find himself surrounded by monsters, but was pleasantly surprised that no one was paying him any mind. Ulterion managed to avoid being seen and was running through the cave with his reappropriated coconut, slightly wondering what was up with the coconuts. Why were all these monsters collecting the coconuts when they clearly didn't want to? Who were they doing it for? These questions plagued Ulterion until he had a thought.
Not my problem.
And he continued running. Ulterion exited the cave with a big smile on his face. He had the coconut that he needed to come back. All he had to do was put it into the bracelet. As he tried to do so, the wind picked up. And knocked the coconut out of Ulterion's hands.
No.
Ulterion reached for the coconut, but it was in vain as it sailed away on the winds.
Damn, what prompted the wind to...
Ulterion looked up, and his heart was filled with terror. As he saw a giant red dragon floating above him. The dragon landed in front of Ulterion and brought his massive head so it was face to face, or in his case face to body, with the human. It gave Ulterion a low growl and snorted, hitting Ulterion with burning steam Luckily, well, that depends on perspective, Ulterion's fear numbed him to the searing pain of the dragon's sting. He did his best to compose himself. He waved to the dragon while laughing nervously.
Hi.
Ulterion was pushed into the middle of the monsters. Everyone looked at the uninvited guest. The dragon stomped in, glaring at his subjects in anger.
I found this outside with one of my coconuts. Would anyone like to explain how that happened?
Ulterion looked around the ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and kobolds, cringing in fear. One hobgoblin came forward, the one called Forger, trembling in fear.
We are sorry, sir.
Forger was interrupted by the dragon's foot crushing him. The dragon sneered.
Thanks for the honesty.
For good measure, the dragon grinded Forger's remains into the ground, then addressed the rest of his subjects.
Perhaps you need me to show you what we do with intruders. Allow me to
The dragon noticed Ulterion sneaking his way towards the cavern opening. The dragon rolled his eyes and he slammed a claw in front of the opening. Ulterion slowly turned around with a forced smile.
I'm sorry, was I part of this conversation?
The dragon smiled.
You're almost too amusing to kill.
Ulterion smiled back.
So you'll let me go?
The dragon shook his head.
You're not that amusing.
The dragon raised a claw over Ulterion's head.
Any last words?
Ulterion racked his brain for some plan to escape this dragon. Then he remembered how he convinced another dragon to become a banker. So he thought the strategy might work again. Ulterion smiled.
May I ask a question?
The dragon shrugged.
I might answer.
Why do you have a hoard of coconuts? Don't dragons usually have a hoard of gold and treasures?
The dragon nodded.
Normally I would have gold and treasure, but...
You really like coconuts?
The dragon looked disgusted.
Ew, gross. I'm a dragon. Flesh and meat are the things that sustain me.
Ulterion nodded as he put up his hands in a defensive posture.
All right, just checking.
Ulterion looked at the monsters present.
So, you use your treasure to pay your men?
The dragon shot a glance to his subjects.
Their payment is living another day.
The monsters shrank back in fear. The dragon turned his attention back to Ulterion.
Any other banal questions?
Just one more, if I may.
The dragon snarled.
You may. One question.
Ulterion nodded sheepishly.
Thank you, O wonderful dragon. Most magnificent.
Out with it.
Ulterion cringed back.
Right. Anyway, what's with the coconut hoard?
The dragon sneered.
It's because of those damn mongo. I was flying over the island, and as I saw the mongo below, I thought they would make a great snack, so I flew down. I breathed my flame all over their village. See how many of them I could roast. I landed to see the fruits of my labor. But I was surprised, to find that the mongo were unscathed and staring at me in confusion. In my rage, I blasted them with more flame. I thought to myself, they must be toast now. But to my surprise, when the smoke cleared, the mongo were standing there once again, unscathed. And laughing at me. I was enraged. I decided to cast a spell. I would spray those furry bastards with a cloud of poison. I figured that had to do it, but... Huh? When the smoke cleared, there were no bodies dropping, there was no one choking, there was just Mongo. Laughing at me. I figured they weren't immune to claws and teeth, so I brought my claws out at them. But I didn't anticipate how fast the little bastards moved. I snapped at them with my teeth. But they avoided that as well, so I figured a sweeping tail swipe would do the job. But I, unfortunately, didn't see the Mongo warrior with a spear. He stabbed me in the... I was stabbed, so in pain and humiliation, I beat a tactical retreat. And as I flew away, I heard those little bastards laughing at me. I would have my revenge. I spent a month watching the Mongo, trying to find a weakness, and I found that coconuts were important to their economy. I found a tribe of ogres and persuaded them to serve me. I did the same with a tribe of trolls. And the goblinoids. And the kobolds for good measure. I sent my army after the Mongo people and stole all their coconuts.
The dragon laughed, clearly self-amused.
Now those furry little bastards don't have their precious coconuts.
Ulterion smiled uncomfortably.
Hilarious. I'm curious. Why don't you just work something out with the Mongo?
The dragon thought for a moment, then shook his head.
No.
Ulterion was taken aback.
No? But why? Do you just hate them that much?
The dragon nodded.
Yes.
Ulterion felt defeated. He wasn't sure what to do as the dragon raised its claw high in the air, ready to bring it down on the human.
Are we done with the questions?
Ulterion prepared for his fate. When he looked at the face of the ogres, trolls, bugbears, hobgoblins, goblins, and kobolds stared at the scene, a smile formed on his lips as a new plan formed in his mind. He feigned a defeated sigh.
No more questions, just praise.
Ulterion started clapping, which confused and intrigued the dragon's ego. Ulterion nodded as he continued to applaud.
Indeed, it's an honor to be killed by such a clever creature.
Is that right?
Of course. I mean, you found creatures more powerful than you, so you found an army more powerful than them.
The dragon was acting a bit bashful. His army started to listen, just like Ulterion planned.
I mean, how do you keep such a powerful force loyal since they can dominate people more powerful than you?
The dragon thought about an answer.
Why?
The dragon suddenly realized what Ulterion was doing. He looked back at his army, who glared at him with rage. The dragon looked worried as he realized how things turned.
Damn it.
As the dragon formed his army, Ulterion slipped away casually and procured a